Chosen one. The universe doesn't forget, and when it strikes back through you, it doesn't just humble people, it spiritually obliterates them. You're about to see the kind of divine reversal that makes even demons take notes. This is karma on steroids, wearing stilettos, carrying receipts, and it just pulled up to their doorstep saying, "Remember me." But before we dive into this beautiful destruction, let me tell you something that will make your spine tingle with recognition. Every single thing that's about to unfold was set in motion the moment you decided to operate from a frequency they couldn't comprehend. You see, when you maintain your peace while others tamper with it, when you refuse to break under pressure designed to shatter you, when you hold truth while they weaponize lies, you don't just frustrate them, you activate something ancient, something that's been waiting in the shadows for exactly this moment. They thought you were just another target, another soul to discard. When they first set their sights on you, they circled like vultures, sensing something different about your energy, but unable to name it. Your presence disturbed their carefully constructed illusions of superiority. While others bent and broke under pressure, you remained standing. While others compromised their integrity for temporary gains, you held firm to principles they had long abandoned. That consistency, that unwavering moral compass, it exposed their emptiness in ways that made them deeply uncomfortable. What they didn't realize is that you weren't chosen by them in the first place. You were anointed, not appointed. Your light didn't come from their approval, and your purpose wasn't subject to their vote. You represent something they could never destroy because it exists independently of their recognition, truths that transcend social dynamics and political maneuvering. When they attacked you, they were essentially declaring war on principles that govern reality itself. The first strike came disguised as concern, wrapped in false compassion like a wolf in sheep's clothing. They whispered about your unrealistic standards and your stubborn refusal to adapt. Behind closed doors, they painted you as difficult, unyielding, somehow problematic for maintaining boundaries they had crossed long ago. But you, chosen one, saw through their performance immediately. You recognized their manipulation for what it was and refused to participate in their theater of deception. While they launched their campaign of psychological warfare, you deployed something far more powerful: strategic silence. You understood that engaging with their drama would only feed their narrative, so you chose a different path. You maintained your integrity while they compromised theirs. You preserved your energy while they exhausted themselves with schemes. You built authentic relationships while they constructed webs of manipulation. Every conversation became a potential trap for them, not you, because you spoke with such consistency that their lies became obvious by contrast. Every interaction they planned to weaponize against you backfired because your authentic responses exposed their calculated coldness. You turned their own tactics against them simply by being genuinely yourself in every situation. You saw through their puppet master performance from the beginning. While they smiled in your face and planted poisonous seeds behind your back, you were quietly building something unshakable. You gathered genuine allies through authentic connection, while they recruited temporary followers through shared grievances. You played a completely different game, one they didn't even know existed. You understood their game better than they understood themselves. While they appeared concerned and protective to outsiders, saying we're just worried about their attitude with masks of false compassion, you maintained such unwavering authenticity that their performance looked forced by comparison. You felt the venom behind every seemingly innocent observation, but instead of reacting, you responded with grace that made their calculated coldness obvious to anyone paying attention. They recruited allies through carefully crafted narratives, but you attracted genuine supporters through authentic relationship. While your silence became evidence of guilt in their twisted mythology, those who truly knew you recognized it as wisdom. While they framed your refusal to engage in drama as arrogance, people of character saw it as strength. While they twisted your commitment to excellence into perfectionism, authentic leaders recognized it as integrity. But here's where their web of deception becomes particularly sinister. Chosen one. They didn't just turn people against you, they turned you into a cautionary tale. They used your situation as ammunition to control others, whispering, "Look what happened to them when they didn't play along," or "This is what happens when you think you're better than everyone else." Your name became a weapon they wielded to keep other potential dissidents in line. They transformed your integrity into a horror story designed to scare others into compliance. You saw through this manipulation immediately and turned it into your advantage. By maintaining your character while they revealed theirs, you became a beacon for others who were also tired of the toxicity. Your example gave courage to people who had been silently suffering under their manipulation. You didn't just resist their control, you inspired others to break free from it. You recognized their propaganda campaign before it even fully launched. While they made you the villain in stories you weren't present for and gathered troops for a war you refused to fight, you were building something far more powerful, an unshakable foundation of truth. You understood that their group chats, whisper networks, and character assassination attempts were actually revealing their own character to anyone with discernment. You played the long game while they played short-term manipulation. While they were busy constructing their house of cards, you were quietly building something that couldn't be shaken. For a while, their tactics seemed to work. People looked at you differently. Some stopped calling, others backed away. You felt the shift in rooms before you even entered them. But instead of breaking under this pressure, you used it as a filter. You discovered who your real allies were and who had only been superficial connections. You turned their campaign into your own character revelation process. While they celebrated your struggles like demons feeding on pain, you transformed that very suffering into spiritual strength. When you were at your lowest, broken and bleeding, you refused to let their entertainment define your experience. Instead of becoming bitter, you became better. Instead of seeking revenge, you sought wisdom. Instead of cursing your circumstances, you found the lessons hidden within them. They celebrated when you were homeless, heartbroken, or battling illness, but you turned each setback into a setup for something greater. While they were laughing and documenting your pain like trophies, you were quietly building resilience they couldn't comprehend. What made their celebration even more grotesque was how they documented it. Screenshots of your struggles, recordings of your vulnerable moments, photos taken without permission during your lowest points. They collected evidence of your pain like trophies. Some even created group chats specifically dedicated to sharing updates about your misfortune. They turned your trauma into their entertainment network, complete with commentary and analysis of each new setback you faced. But you saw through their pathetic need for validation. You recognize that people who find joy in others' suffering are revealing their own spiritual poverty. Instead of giving them the satisfaction of seeing you broken, you used their cruelty as fuel for your transformation. Every laugh at your expense became motivation for your comeback. Every celebration of your setback became energy for your elevation. You responded to their cruelty with a strategy they never saw coming. You thrived anyway. You found new opportunities that were better than what you lost. You discovered relationships that were healthier than what ended. You developed strength that was greater than what challenged you. Your response to their celebration wasn't revenge, it was renaissance. But what they never said out loud was how deeply they envied your strength. Even when you were heartbroken, homeless, or sick, you still had a presence, you still had a light, and that light irritated their demons. They felt bigger when you were small, safer when you were broken. They loved knowing you were in survival mode while they were living in comfort. While they thought stepping on you would lift them higher and planned your removal like a strategic military operation, you were playing an entirely different game. You understood that their spiritual warfare wasn't really about you, it was about their own insecurity and fear. So instead of fighting their battle, you focused on building your own kingdom. While they were wishing failure on you like other people wish for sunshine, you were praying for your own elevation with equal dedication. The universe doesn't respond to names, it responds to energy. So you made sure your energy was consistently aligned with growth, healing, and purpose. Here's where your spiritual intelligence completely outmaneuvered their schemes. Chosen one. while they became obsessed with your destruction and started cursing themselves through their toxic intentions. You maintained such spiritual purity that their malice couldn't even reach you. You were protected by forces they couldn't comprehend, operating on frequencies they couldn't access. You watched their energy form its own spiritual boomerang while remaining completely detached from their chaos. You sent out love while they sent out hatred. You focused on your purpose while they focused on your destruction. You aligned with light while they danced with darkness. The contrast was so stark that their own negative energy had nowhere to go but back to them. When their luck turned dramatically and they started believing you must have supernatural powers, you knew the truth. You didn't need supernatural powers because you had something far greater, spiritual alignment. You didn't have to curse them or cast spells because you were operating from such a high vibration that their low-frequency attacks couldn't stick to you. While they couldn't wrap their heads around how quickly their perfect world turned into chaos, you understood the spiritual mechanics at play. They started whispering to each other that maybe you had supernatural abilities they'd underestimated. Maybe you sent something back. Maybe you were more spiritually powerful than they thought. The irony is delicious. They cast their own destruction with such precision that they convinced themselves you must be a master of the dark arts. But you didn't have to lift a finger, chosen one. All you did was survive with a clean heart while they drowned themselves in wickedness. Every time they whispered, "I hope they lose everything," the universe said, "Noted, you just claimed that energy for yourself." Every curse they spoke over your life became a seed planted in their own soil. Now they're experiencing every single thing they wished on you: confusion, setbacks, isolation, loss. But it's not punishment, it's reflection. Their prayers didn't move God, their energy moved the outcome. Some of them crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. When lies and manipulation weren't enough, they turned to actual spiritual warfare. They sought out people who claimed to have power, paid for spells and rituals meant to block your path and twist your mind. They lit candles, chanted your name in curses, called on forces they didn't understand. The spiritual practitioners they hired warned them about potential consequences, but their hatred was so consuming they ignored every caution. They wanted results regardless of the cost. Some even attempted their own rituals, lighting black candles, writing your name on paper and burning it, calling on entities they had no business summoning. They opened doors they didn't know how to close, invited darkness they couldn't control. Now they're paying the ultimate price for their spiritual recklessness. The same forces they called upon for your destruction have taken up residence in their own lives. They're not sleeping, they're seeing shadows, jumping at nothing, having breakdowns they can't explain. The same spirits they called for revenge are sitting with them at night, refusing to leave. It's not paranoia, it's spiritual infestation. The irony is that they thought darkness would be their ally, but darkness serves no master except itself. The entities they invited didn't distinguish between the summoner and the target. They simply found the most spiritually vulnerable host. And since you were protected by forces of light, they settled into the lives of those who opened the doors. Now these practitioners of malice are trapped in their own spiritual prison, unable to escape the very forces they unleashed. Their homes feel haunted, their dreams are plagued with nightmares, their relationships are disintegrating as the dark energy they invited begins affecting everyone around them. Some have reported unexplained illnesses, sudden financial catastrophes, and a persistent feeling that something malevolent is watching them. They created their own personal hell and invited it into every aspect of their existence. But what shattered their reality completely, chosen one, was this. Removing you didn't open doors for them. It locked every single one they tried to walk through. Instead of elevation, they got spiritual exhaustion. Everything they touch now turns to dust. Partnerships dissolve overnight. Money evaporates. Opportunities slip through their fingers like water. Trumpazenti, what makes this cosmic reversal even more devastating is how their ambition became their anchor. They tied their dreams to your destruction, believing that your absence would create space for their abundance. When you build success on someone else's suffering, you're constructing your empire on cursed ground. Every foundation they laid using your pain as mortar began to crack the moment you started rising again. Their progress isn't just stalled, it's spiritually paralyzed. Clients back out at the last minute. Deals that seemed guaranteed fall through for mysterious reasons. Their reputation, once polished and prominent, now carries whispers of doubt. People can't quite put their finger on why, but something feels off about their energy. Success that once flowed effortlessly now requires exhausting effort for minimal results. The most terrifying consequence of all, they've been spiritually cut off. They tried to play God in your life, deciding what you deserved, who should love you, how far you should go. They whispered in rooms they had no business being in, tampered with what was meant for you, tried to delay things that were divinely timed, but when you try to play God, eventually you're left with a silence you cannot fill. That's where they are now, praying to empty air, asking for breakthrough that never comes, manifesting nothing but more disappointment. It's not because they're cursed, it's because they overstepped. They tried to edit someone else's calling and forfeited their own alignment in the process. The divine doesn't share authority with manipulators. It removes its covering from them, and that absence they feel, that spiritual dryness, isn't a test, it's a consequence. They touched what was sacred, tried to halt what was heaven sent, and now they're standing outside gates they once tried to guard. Every week we gather live on Zoom, real people with real faces sharing real stories of transformation. There's a former CFO who embraced their psychic abilities, a seer who broke free from religious oppression, and a healer who survived ritual abuse and found their power. Dozens more join us who understand exactly what you've been through. This is your spiritual family, never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you walk through this awakening alone, never gonna scroll past your suffering like it's just content. Your exile from the ordinary world wasn't punishment, it was preparation. For this, for us, for the family that chooses you back. Join the Obsidian Inner Order, link in description. Time has a way of revealing truth, even when lies seem to be winning. Slowly, piece by piece, people started noticing inconsistencies. The same person who called you too much was being called toxic by others. The one who said you were the problem somehow had drama with everyone else. The lies started falling apart on their own, but time didn't just expose their lies, it amplified your truth. While they were busy maintaining their fabricated narratives, you were consistently being yourself. Your authentic responses to their attacks created a stark contrast that became impossible to ignore. When they lied, you remained truthful. When they spread chaos, you maintained peace. When they chose manipulation, you chose transparency. This consistency became your testimony, speaking louder than any defense you could have offered. The universe kept perfect records of every interaction, every motivation, every consequence. What they thought was buried in the past began surfacing with devastating clarity. People started remembering conversations differently, noticing patterns they had missed, connecting dots that painted a picture completely opposite to the story they had been told. The truth had its own timeline, and that timeline was now accelerating beyond their control. Those same people who once sided with your enemies are experiencing something deeper than regret. They're feeling the weight of spiritual guilt. They realize they weren't just deceived, they were weaponized. They became unwitting soldiers in someone else's army of destruction, and that knowledge is eating at their conscience like acid. The same web they wove to catch you is now choking them. Those lies they told so confidently, they're circling back like boomerangs with razor edges. The people they manipulated are waking up, comparing stories, noticing patterns that make their stomachs turn with realization. One by one, their pawns are stepping off the board. Here's the beautiful irony that completes this cosmic comedy. They thought your quietness meant powerlessness. Your humility looked like fear to them. The way you walked away from drama, stayed silent during chaos, didn't defend yourself when lies were flying, they interpreted all of this as weakness. But what they never understood is that your silence wasn't surrender, it was strategy. You were preserving energy, not because you were losing, but because you were shifting. While they were busy trying to destroy your reputation, you were quietly rebuilding your reality. You processed pain that would have left them bitter, found joy in places they prayed would break you. They mistook your meekness for powerlessness, never realizing that true strength often appears gentle to those who only recognize force. Your restraint wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. Your refusal to retaliate wasn't defeat, it was divine strategy. You understood something they never could, that real power doesn't need to prove itself through destruction. Now you're glowing with a light that irritates their demons. Your peace bothers their spirit. Your success makes them question everything they thought about power. They see you thriving, and it disturbs their sleep because you remind them of their own failure. You are living proof that their hatred had no power over what was divinely protected. Every time they witness your continued rise, it's a mirror reflecting their own spiritual bankruptcy back at them. This is your moment of ultimate vindication, chosen one. Everything they tried to destroy about you has been resurrected with interest. Every door they tried to close has been blown off its hinges. Every relationship they poisoned has been replaced with connections that actually see your worth. Every opportunity they blocked has been multiplied into possibilities they could never have imagined. When you violate someone who was divinely placed in your life for growth, you don't just lose them, you lose access to the part of yourself that could have evolved through that connection. They disconnected from peace, from favor, from alignment itself. Now their sleep is strange, their thoughts heavy, their spirit cloudy. Everything feels harder than it used to be. The spiritual mathematics of their actions created a deficit in their souls that cannot be calculated in earthly terms. They didn't just take your trust, they took a piece of their own capacity for genuine connection. They didn't just damage your reputation, they damaged their own ability to build authentic relationships. They didn't just try to block your blessings, they blocked their own access to divine favor. Every attack on your character became a withdrawal from their own spiritual bank account. This is why their current success feels hollow, their achievements taste like ash, and their relationships feel transactional. They traded their soul's currency for temporary power, not realizing that some exchanges cannot be reversed through human effort alone. The emptiness they feel isn't depression, it's the natural consequence of spiritual bankruptcy. They wanted you erased, written out of your own story, forgotten and replaced. The gossip was strategic, the fake concern calculated, the crocodile tears perfectly timed. It was a full erasure campaign disguised as care. They wanted you gone, not just from their space, but from existence itself. Trompebeci, what they tried to bury, wasn't just a person, it was divine purpose. And purpose can't be cancelled by jealousy, envy, or even spiritual warfare. Now the reversal has begun. Their once loud lives are dimming while you step into light too pure to be man-made. This is divine inversion in real time. The schemers are scrambling. The ones who tried to silence you are being silenced, and you're being crowned in places they swore you'd never enter. And here we complete the circle, chosen one. They laughed at the wrong person when they mocked your pain, ridiculed your struggles, and celebrated your setbacks. They had no idea they were laughing at someone watched, covered, and protected by forces beyond their comprehension. You weren't just another target, you were a divine test placed in their path to reveal their hearts. They failed that test spectacularly. Their cruelty wasn't clever, it was spiritual suicide. Every laugh at your expense was recorded in realms they don't understand. Every moment of mockery was catalogued by a justice system that makes human courts look like playground disputes. Now they're living in a silence that speaks louder than any punishment. They're begging a God they ignored for help that isn't coming, not out of cruelty but out of correction. Because the same divine force they're calling on watched them laugh at someone he anointed. This isn't spiritual warfare, it's spiritual isolation, a divine timeout that will continue until they understand the magnitude of what they've done. The laughter has turned to silence they can't escape. The same God they're now desperately seeking watched them mock his chosen one. and divine justice doesn't just knock, it enters like it was invited by their own actions. Your victory isn't just personal, it's prophetic. Others who witnessed both their campaign against you and these devastating consequences have learned that attacking the innocent comes with a price tag their souls can't afford. Your story becomes a protective precedent, a warning to future predators that some people simply aren't safe to harm. You're not the same person they attacked. You've been forged in fires that would have consumed them, refined by trials that revealed the difference between authentic power and artificial influence. Your character has been tested under pressure that would have shattered their illusions, and you emerged not just intact but enhanced. Tomprogent of the crown they tried to snatch was never theirs to touch. It was forged through pain, protected by purpose, and placed on your head by hands they can't reach. This isn't a comeback story, this is divine justice in real time, and the same people who once laughed at your downfall are now haunted by your rise. Stand tall in this knowledge, chosen one. Your vindication serves the greater good by proving that principles matter, character counts, and authentic power always triumphs over artificial influence. Their education in these truths came at great cost to them, but benefits everyone who witnessed it by reinforcing universal laws that protect the innocent and preserve justice. The universe doesn't waste pain or allow suffering without purpose. Every moment of your trial was preparation for greater responsibility. Every test was training for larger missions. Every attack was ultimately an investment in your authority. You've been elevated not just above your circumstances, but above the very people who thought they could dim your light. Your journey through this crucible has equipped you with supernatural discernment. You can now detect manipulation from miles away, recognize authentic character under pressure, and distinguish between temporary alliances and eternal connections. The wisdom you gained through their betrayal has become armor that protects not just you, but everyone who comes under your influence. You've become a living shield for other chosen ones who might face similar attacks. The strength you developed while enduring their assault isn't just personal resilience, it's generational breakthrough. You didn't just survive for yourself, you survived to break cycles, to establish new standards, to demonstrate that authentic power cannot be destroyed by artificial schemes. Your victory becomes a template for others who will face similar spiritual warfare, proof that the innocent are never truly defenseless when aligned with divine purpose. Their fear is justified because they've witnessed forces they can't control or manipulate. They've seen evidence of justice that operates beyond human institutions. They've experienced consequences that can't be avoided through clever manipulation or strategic alliances. They've confronted the reality that some debts can only be paid through genuine transformation or extended suffering. Your story continues, chosen one, but this chapter ends with cosmic confirmation that you are exactly who you were meant to be, untouchable, unstoppable, and undeniably blessed. The same universe that corrected their overreach is now orchestrating your overflow, and what comes next will make their former power look like child's play compared to the authority you're about to walk in. They learned their lesson the hard way, but you learned something even more valuable, that you are indeed chosen, protected, and destined for greatness that no human scheme can derail. Welcome to your new chapter where their former oppression becomes the foundation for your eternal elevation.